26. I was preparing for this coming Wednesday and some subsequent Wednesdays, and one of the what I do is on Wednesday, just a little something extra. I hand out something that'll help you remember what the subject for the day is. And so one of the things we talk about is George Washington at um, Monongahela, right? The battle there, where it really God used that to elevate George Washington in the eyes of all, that he would be the chosen one for our American Revolution in terms of leadership, become the father of our nation, and so forth. And so I didn't have this for the last time we did this a similar series, but I found a stamp, and it was produced in 1930, and it's a stamp of George Washington, Colonel George Washington, and he's standing up there with a rifle and so forth. And I got one for everybody that attends. And as I was thinking, I was reading on it, and it said that in 1930, how many of you were alive in 1930? Don't flood the air with hands, okay? In 1930, they printed this USPS stamp in honor of the 175th year since that event took place. And so it didn't take a math genius to figure out, whoa, we're coming up real quickly to 2030, aren't we? We're in 2026. And when that hits 2030, that'll be the 275th anniversary. And I just started thinking about that. And I was thinking about this stamp, 1930. They did this because why? Because they remembered. See, back in 1930, the people remembered. They knew what that is. It says the Battle of Braddock's Creek or something like that. They knew that that's where General Braddock was defeated, but at the same time, that was where God had anointed George Washington. And see, that's really the problem, and that's really the focus of Lost and Found, especially for where we're going starting Wednesday, is that the wonderful stories of God intervening on behalf of the U.S. of A., what would become the U.S. of A., these have been hidden by the enemy. How many believe they were hidden? These stories have been the people knew them for over a century, but then we're smart. We decided that God needed to be separated from schools and from public. And if you're going to teach history and you've separated God, are you going to tell stories about God's miraculous intervention? The early textbooks had them in it, but are you going to do it once you do it? No, you're not going to do that because we're so smart. We're real smart. We're going to just move God out because we can do everything on our own. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, and that spirit still operates. But we have the ability to change that. And that's what to me, what is so glorious about the two. We're alive right now in 2026. We're a generation that gets to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country's origination. But to do that, we need, you know what, I'm giving a summary of the whole message right now. I'm going to let you go in about 2 minutes. Okay, I'm almost done with the message. I'm just kidding you. I'd never do that to you. I've got a little bit more here, okay? But let me share that we have the honor, but also the responsibility. We have the challenge. Do we let all the stories just continue to die, to continue to be stayed lost? Or do we find them? Do we relocate them? And then all of a sudden we can share it on. Think about it. Are you called to Jesus to be a Christian, then to hide it under a bushel? No, we're supposed to share with others, aren't we? The glorious thing that we've experienced. Well, how about if that same God did miraculous things to make sure that this nation would come into existence? Are we not supposed to equally give glory to God by finding them out and sharing them with others? That's why, to me, it's so important for you to get people here. Just pray about it. I've already got a couple people coming that haven't been here in a long time, okay? And you could do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can. It's a football thing, right? Well, we're right in football season coming up to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry for all the Kansas City fans because you ain't winning this year. You're already out. Sorry, General David back there in the back. So last week I shared, actually this is part 3 because Jesse 2 weeks ago shared Lost and Found, then I shared last week, and this week I'll conclude with it because I want to show you something from the scripture. But I shared how God oftentimes gives me direction by these God incidences that all of a sudden string together and really lets me know his pleasure, what he's about, what he's happy about, if I can put it that way, joyful about in terms of what we're doing. And so it started with sometime in December we were in here, and I said to Jesse, I was just walking over there, and all of a sudden the Lord just put very strongly, so strongly that I knew it was like a prophecy. I had to speak it out. And I said to I turned, Jesse's over there, and I turned from over there. I said, Jesse, lost and found, that's the word for 2026. I didn't know what it all meant, but I just knew that's what it was. And then very shortly she gets a phone call from Brenda, and Brenda said, Jesse, I lost Leo's credit card. I think it's out by the pine trees. And I think Jesse already knew she was going to find it. And so she went out there, and boom, there it was, and picked it up and called Brenda back. And by the way, the Lord said through my dad that the word for 2026 is lost and found, because you lost, and it's not by coincidence that right now, it's never happened before, Brenda, that you've called me that you lost your husband's credit card out by the pine trees at the very moment that Dad spoke to me. And then she told the story about the pennies. Now that was truly supernatural. That in early December she would order, 2025 is the end of the pennies, right? That's it. No more pennies, okay? Yeah, good, bad, indifferent, right? But there's no more pennies. So she ordered one penny for each of us. She's pretty cheap, like her dad. You could have gotten something silver. Instead, she gets us something. Never mind. And the pennies aren't even copper anymore. They're like 85% zinc or something like that. So you're not really cheap, honey. You're just the butt of a joke here. So she orders these things in December, and she's waiting for them to come. And so she's checking with the, where the tracking is. And it says delivered December 15th. And how can that happen? She went out. There wasn't here December 15th. And so long story short, she complains. She talks to the mail deliverer and says, how can this be that it's delivered? He says, look, I've got GPS. I'll get back to you on this thing because we can tell exactly where it was, when it was delivered, if it was delivered in the very place it was delivered. And so now we're in the first week of January. This is for Christmas. We didn't get our Christmas present. But we're the first week of January, and she sees him, and he says, he puts into the mailbox a card, and on it says, delivered December, we're in the first week of January, delivered December 15th at this mailbox. But right on top of it is a little satchel. She opens it up, and it's the lost pennies. Now, how did it show up right when he did that? And she even asked him, did you trick us? No, I didn't. I wouldn't do that, he said. It was a miracle that it showed up. Why? Because that which was lost has been found. And so then I told you last week we went down, it was Thursday. I kind of messed up in my days. I got Thursday and Friday mixed up. But Thursday, we went down to see Jonathan Cahn down in San Diego. And I mentioned to you the fact that I went there specifically. My desire was not only to hear Jonathan Cahn, to get an update on where he's thinking, what God's showing him, but then also to buy the DVDs for the Avatar. And so they put it up on the screen that they're selling them in the foyer. I go, yes, because they haven't been available. They hadn't been put out yet in the public. This is it. They're just releasing it. So then I go get in the line, get up there to buy them, and the guy can't find them. They're lost. The DVDs, what I want. So Pastor Hector wanted a book, so he got a book. We got in line to get it autographed for him, and then we showed the picture last week. Anyway, I get it there, and I tell Jonathan Kahn, he says, they've got to be here. I know the box is here. And so then he sent this lady out to look for it. She comes by once and says, I can't find it anywhere, but there's one last place to look. Then she comes back in and says, I found it. Lost and found. I mean, they had us sitting over in chairs, just me and Pastor Hector and another pastor, waiting to see if she found it. And so that's how God gets my attention. He'll do these replication of things, lots of them. Actually, I told you 7 things, 7 lost and founds last week. Right? 7, all within this little period of time. And I thought one of the interesting ones was my wife lost her scissors that she had outside. And I found them. I drove here in the dark, okay, and I found them because when I drove from Escondido on the freeway, then going all around and got in the parking lot, I'm looking out the window because of the lights out there, right? You know, there and there they are on the hood of the car. No, they're not caught between the washers or the wipers or anything. They're just sitting out on the car like that, lost and found. But to me, the most fantastic one of the 7 was this one. Corky's leaving, and so he said, I thought I'd leave you something that you might enjoy having. And so he left me, do you have it back there, David? He left me this drawing that someone gave him, and he's a fisherman, okay? He worked in fishing for years, and that's one of the reasons he went back to Mississippi. I think he's going to end up down there, right down on the coast, and he might do, work again down there. But anyway, if you notice, the name of his boat from 30 years ago was The Lost Found. Now think about that for a second. How timing that is to go along with all of the other things that the Lord showing us. And then, so I thought that was it. God had gotten our attention, right? Gotten my attention until I come in here Wednesday. And we come in to watch the last episode of season 5 of The Chosen, and at a very intense part where they have him calling a person to discipleship. Let's see it. Move out of the way, Corky. You're off now.
I'm a rabbi, and I'm asking you to follow me.
It was nice meeting you.
You'd be part of changing the world. Become part of a family not of relatives, but of blood bonds just the same. Spend your days with some of the most interesting, unfettered, funny, driven, brave, nurturing, smart, strong, passionate, fiery, loyal, loving, imperfect people to ever walk the earth. You will see. And do things you cannot imagine. You will be adored, hated, needed, lost, and found.
So I go, oh, man. So I came up here and I said, it's following me everywhere. I can't get away from it. Okay, and I say that with humor, but the reality is that's how God speaks to me. It's always been that way. And so that's why I come out here and I'm very definite about last year was the children, and it's all about the children, which is still carrying on, by the way. But to me, there's no doubt about what God's doing. It's all about the lost and found. Therefore, to me, it's a validation of the program that we're starting this Wednesday. What better way to honor the 250th anniversary of the founding of our nation? But more than that, it's lost. It's being hidden. That's why the problems we're having in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and New York, and LA and other places. That's why the issues that we're having is we've lost our way. We've lost our foundations. The stories of our country's foundations have been lost because they are being hidden. The miracles that God performed, of which our forefathers wrote down and talked about and gave God praise and worship. There was 1,300 days of fasting and prayer that took place in the first centuries of our country in terms of how God was intervening. So we took a look last week at a thing I want to show real quickly again. This is just so profound to me, and that's Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 3 through 11. Just a couple things I want to announce about it. First of all, God sets up 3 fixed things that he has fixed. It's fixed even though the world has fallen. Okay, they're fixed. Number 1, he talked about the sun. Number 2, he talked about the wind. Number 3, he talked about the rivers and the seas, the rivers and the oceans. And he says that each has a circuit. The sun has a circuit that it goes on through the year. And we can depend upon that. We have peace because we know the sun rises and the sun sets, and we know how it works in relationship with the moon and the full moon, the new moon, the no moon, okay, up there. Then he goes on the wind. He talks about the wind circuit, the north wind, the southern wind. And then finally he talks about how the rivers empty into the seas, but they are not filled because basically it's speaking of the evaporation of waters back onto the earth again. And then he goes into, after that, talking about something that I believe what he's saying there is that we should understand something. And that there's nothing new under the sun. Just as there's fixed things that God has placed, there's something that happens in the order of man where there's nothing totally new under the sun. But things reoccur. Therefore, we need to know our history. But he also puts in there in verse number 8, he says, but man's eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with the hearing. In other words, because of the fall, that we're confronted with things that gain our attention on in a continual manner. Our eyes, our ears are filled with things which makes it easy for us to forget. That's why he goes on to say that that which is not only that which has been is what will be, that which is done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. However, he goes on to say, there is no remembrance of former things. Why? Because we are engrossed in what we have now. Nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who will come after. In other words, it's an attack by the adversary. He loves to hide in everything there is about God. He loves to hide Jesus from people. Oh, yeah, you can believe in that. I've got to make my life's direction. I have to fulfill my life's direction. I don't have time for that stuff. But there's many different ways to heaven. In other words, people want to ignore and allow to stay hidden from them the very blessings that God has for them. And all of us are familiar with this. All of us have friends or relatives or people we've attempted to share the gospel with, and it's hidden from them. They don't want to find it because it's going to encumber their lives. It's going to cause them to make changes in their lives. The real question is, though, why? Why is it like this? This is what I didn't share on last week. It goes right back to the garden. It's funny, we were talking about men and women's relationships on Thursday morning in the men's Bible study, and we went right back to the garden and realized that there was problems between men and women. There was discussions, differences of opinion back in the garden, okay? And so if you think you're going to be freed from those encumbrances, hold on, especially for you young people, you'll find out real quickly in life. Hey, I've been married. How many years have we been married? 56, going to 57. No, clap her. That wasn't because of me. Clap for her, okay? Man had a perfect relationship with God in the garden. Perfect. Things were perfect. Everything was good. Everything God created was good. Man had a perfect relationship with God, but he disobeyed God's one directive. Adam and Eve disobeyed God's one directive. You can do anything, you can eat anything, but just leave that tree alone. And when they fell, they invited a fallen angel to corrupt our world. This introduced death. Sin produced death. And so we entered into a different, I can't explain it completely. All I can tell you is scripturally, what we entered into was a different state of being. From perfection we fell. And we entered into what I call brokenness of time. Death. Separation. Problems. Difficulties. A time till we die kind of is always in the back of the mind. Because we know we're in a time frame. I like to put it, we're all on the same, what do you call those things you walk on? We're all on the same treadmill. You can't get off. It's going. We're all going there, right? So this whole concept of we have a limited amount of time is always in the background. We have that same thing in terms of a time limit on projects that need to be accomplished. There's always a pressure of time. You know what that does? That produces anxiety. It produces fear. Any of you people ever heard of a term called FOMO? Fear of missing out. Why is all that anxiety and fear there? It's because of the fall. Time has been broken. God lives in an eternity of time. He lives in a different realm than we live. We live in a broken time where anxiety and fear come, fear of death, fear of missing an obligation, fear of missing an appointment, fear of not having enough money, fear of anxiety, fear, and anxiety, all because of what happened in the garden. And because of that, we oftentimes will not have enough energy and time to consider what's really important, and that is that everything repeats itself over and over, like the sun, the moon, the stars. There's certain things that happen over and over again. Right now, what's happening in Minneapolis, what's happening in New York, do you think that hasn't happened before? Do you think that hasn't happened before in the United States? It has. Every time there's a crisis, those that are against God come out. And they come out in force. They try to cause upheaval. They try to cause dissension. They want death to happen because they want any kind of leverage they can to destroy what God created here because they have something to replace it with, and it's not from God. It'll bring mankind into imprisonment. It'll bring about death. It has in every society in which it's come. It's the devil, the enemy, working to destroy what God created. How much time do we have permeates our everyday. Jesus came to set us free from all of that. Think about that for a second. He did what? He came to destroy fear of death. And once you can deal with fear of death, then you can start having the other things under control. Because he came to give us a hope and a future. A hope and a future. He forgives us of our personal sins and gives us rest. He wants us to be anxious for nothing. Don't worry about tomorrow. Just trust in me in the day. The next day has enough, or today has enough evil in it that you're going to have to deal with. So that brokenness of time that came about because of sin, which created death, which created the brokenness, he came to set us free from that. We're in the world, but we're not of the world anymore. Our existence doesn't end here. It goes on with him. Have you ever thought why God might have told the Israelites to put those 12 stones in memorial, and every time your kids come by here, I want you to tell them the marvelous story of how the Red Sea parted, how the Jordan parted? You ever thought why he might have created the feasts and all these things, the repetitions, year after year after year, so that we would remember? The solution to the problem of the anxiety of time comes in remembrance, Number one, remembrance that we're saved. Number two, remembrance is the Holy Spirit is here to lead us and guide us. Number three, remember all these things. Have you thought about why Jesus might have established communion? So as we take it weekly, what that is to do, it's to cause us to not be overcome by the day, but to remember whose we belong to, whose we are. Not only communion, but baptism. Do them continually, to separate us from the anxiety and the fear of everyday life, which many people are overpowered by, and that we would have to be able to rejoice from the mountaintops. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. That's why our holy days are important. Holidays are holy days. So Christmas, Easter, the holy days are important. They're the source of remembrance again. But the nation's history is unique. Our nation's history is unique. We have July 4th as a day of remembrance, but because an enemy has worked to take away from us the very stories of God's creation of our nation, and because you're not going to get in the educational system at any level, because of the fact that God has been separated and made it illegal for things like prayer and Bible study, although people like Bill James are getting them back in. But still, think about your history classes. What history class have you ever had a kid your child bring home their thing and say, hey, look, we talked about George Washington and we talked about this event and so forth where God intervened. Now, you're not going to get it. So how do you get it? Well, it's up to us to remember it. It's up to uncover it, to give it, and then we, as our blessing to God, tell other people about it. It goes right along with sharing Jesus with others. Because our nation is different. We're the only nation that declares it to be one nation under God. We're it. We're the only nation that has been established 250 years ago in the Old and New Testament, and believing that we are offspring of God, that we have been created in His image and likeness. We're the nation that has been blessed above other nations because of that and that alone. What is our responsibility as our nation is thankful for 250 years of freedom? To know and to pass on how God intervened in the founding of our nation to make sure we would exist as a people for Him. We've been created one nation under God. We have been created. God intervened miraculously so that we would exist as a people for Him. We get excited, at least I do, when we think of how God intervened, like for Gideon, so that he could beat the enemy with only 300 men. You remember how many men he started out with? Thousands, right? Thousands, and God keeps whittling it down to finally there's 300 men. And then with these 300 prime warriors, how does he win the battle? With broken jars and trumpets and candles. Why did he do that? To let them know that it was God that did it. It was God who performed a miracle. Trumpets, torches, and jars. I like this one, and I'm going to close with this one. 1 Samuel 7:10 through 12. Now as Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But the Lord thundered with a loud thunder upon the Philistines that day, and so confused them that they were overcome before Israel. And the men of Israel went out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, and drove them back as far as below Bethkar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shen, and called its name Ebenezer, saying, thus far the Lord has helped us. I want you to notice two things there. Number one, God used the weather to intervene. With thundering, he came against them, confused them all. And I can see it, my picture in my mind is thunder and lightning and wind and everything going on and being just petrified, and they just spread out, and here goes Israel chasing after them. So he used the elements to overcome them. Do you know how many of the stories we're going to look at on Wednesdays that God used in the establishment of our nation in times and battles that it looked like we were going to lose? And the founders that went through it wrote about it. They declared that if God had not intervened with that fog, with that rain, with that raising of the tide, they were sunk. The American Revolution would have been killed in its cradle. But the same God who did this, and notice what they did? They put what? They took a stone and set it up and gave it a name. Why? So that people, when they came by, they would remember. We have to relearn. We have to remember. Then we have to share with others the foundation of what makes our nation different. We are one nation under God. We have been created by him. He miraculously intervened to create a nation that would exist for 250 years, that he could use and work through because we're created for him and his purposes. Whether it was 1607 at Cape Henry, when that first prophecy was given forth of what this nation was going to be about, or whether when we were established in 1776 and 1787, it's all about God, and it's all about the privilege that we have. Much of our nation has lost its way. It's lost its foundation, our understanding of who we are or whose we are. The miraculous stories of the founding of our nation must be found, relearned, and passed on to those who will hear. God has not given up on America. We just need to carve a special place in our busy schedules to relive those special stories of when God showed up to make sure his one nation under him would happen. So we have a unique opportunity. We have a very unique opportunity, and that is we're going to dedicate this 12-week period to the remembering and the reliving and the then being able to share with others why we are different as a people, and why God has blessed us all this time. And so, as I shared last week, you got three choices. You can come out at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. You can come out at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, or you can watch it on YouTube. Now, I hesitate on YouTube, although those of you watching at home, that might be your only opportunity is to watch it. I hesitate because it's easy to think you're going to do that, and then it's just like fasting. As soon as you decide to fast, someone's going to call and invite you out to dinner. I just know how it works. I know how it works. I've been around long enough. So I hesitate, but to make yourself get ready when you're tired to come out and be at a place, and then you get blessed and you have that experience. I trust that more than the sometimes hollow promise to yourself that you're going to watch it at home. So it's there, okay? It is there that you can follow along. Why do you want to follow along? Because I think you have a responsibility. If you don't share with others, if you don't know it, if you don't carve out of your busy schedule time to learn it, who is? Who is if you don't? And when I say you, I mean we. Who is if we don't? We've been given see, all this to me just ties into why you're here, who we are as a people. Why have we done 43 years of hosting the Vista Mayor's Prayer Breakfast? Why? Because biblically we're supposed to be concerned about those that are in leadership above us and pray for them. It's part of who we are as a people. But again, we have a unique opportunity, responsibility. I really pray not only that you guys will be there starting this Wednesday, but that you'll invite others. That any chance you can, you're going to say, hey, you want to know the truth of why this nation's special? It's not special because of us. It reminds me of where God speaks of Israel, and he says, it's not because you're such a great people. It's my love toward you, okay? And so God didn't choose us because we as Americans were going to be better, okay? We've proven many times how it can be worse, okay? But he did it because of his plan. And it's promised that if a people would base their life on his word, he would bless them. And we have. We've based from the beginning that. So bow with me in prayer, would you? Lord, thank you for this opportunity we have. And I pray, Lord, that you help each and every one of us to carve out of our busy schedules an hour on Wednesday for 12 Wednesdays. Give you 12 hours, Lord. I pray you help us, Lord, to see the seriousness of the moment, understand what's happening in Minneapolis right now, because they've lost their way. Their leadership has lost their way, and peoples have lost their way, and they're being egged on by agitators who are paid and brought in from other places, just as has happened in the United States at other times, other years, other decades, when there's unrest. And there's a lot of unrest right now, Lord, because they don't like the way the country is going. They don't want law reinstituted. They want lawlessness so that they can then move themselves into positions of power. Lord, we pray that we'll see the seriousness of the moment. And whether or not, with Gideon, it was 300 people. We got a lot less here. But then I remember that you changed the world with 12. Bless. No, I'm not going to say bless us. Lord, I seek that we'll bless you, that we'll hear the call, and we'll stand to the ready. We give you the praise and the thanksgiving in your precious name, Jesus. And everybody said, amen. We got folks up here that'll pray with you if you need prayer this morning. If not, God bless you.